Hi, this is C. Oleg Wildridge with the Hemlock Vales Proto-Grove ADF, and this will be our next installment in the Irish Pagan Series. So today we will be talking about the godden of Irish paganism. This will not explore every single Tuatha De Danann, but we will talk about some of the major deities and the ones I have worked with. With that, we should define who the deities are. The gods of the ancient Irish are collectively called the Tuatha De Danann, meaning the people of the tribe or clan of Danu, the Earth Mother. They are the gods of many arts and skills, which is one of their defining features. They are master craftsfolk and artists, warriors and poets who are the best in all arts. This reflects their godliness and also the importance of skill in ancient Irish society. They are also the deities under the earth and in the other world. This is partly due to the agreement they made with the sons of Meal, which I will talk about in a moment. They are associated with the underside of the earth and the mounds, which are called the She in Irish. That's spelled Sidhe. She. This also associates them with the fairies, who are said to live in the mounds as well. They're sometimes called royalty of the fair folk because of this. The Tua, as a group, are a very proud and skilled pantheon of many deities, some of whom we will discuss today. One of the foundational myths of the Tuatha De Danann is the Catmaitura. This is the battle between the Fomori, who are the raider gods of the north who oppressed the Tuatha, and the Tuatha De Danann themselves. The Tuatha are victorious, and Lu becomes the king of the tribe. This myth ties together a lot of information and tells us much about what we know about these deities. I'm not going to retell the whole myth today, but I suggest you read about it or find a storyteller who can do it justice. It's a great story and very powerful, and it can teach us a lot about the deities we want to work with. Another important concept is the agreement made with the Gaels. So when humans came to Ireland, they were called the Sons of Meal and the ancestors of the Gaels. Their leader, Amergin the Bard, helped them to succeed over the Tuatha De Danann and take Ireland. They made an agreement with these deities to split the upper and lower parts of Ireland between them. The Tuatha got the lower half under the earth, while the Sons of Meal got the upper part. They also began to intermarry and worship the Tuatha De Danann as gods. I suspect that Amergin made an oath or agreement with the Tuatha and the Fairfolk that has specific rules, but we don't know the terms anymore. It might explain certain behaviors of the fairies and the deities that we don't like or understand. Either way, in some of the stories, the Dagda or Manana MacLear split the many she-mounds between the Tuatha and made them invisible and immortal. This is why many of the mounds are still revered as fairy places or sacred spots. Over time, as Ireland became Christian, the Tuatha are remembered as fairies or heroes rather than gods. And this is how a lot of the written sources treat them. But they are deities, though, so we're going to treat them as such. Let's get started with Nuada. So Nuada Argedlaw, or Nuada of the Silver Hand, is a god of justice and kingship. He is one of the first kings of the Tuatha De Danann, also going by the name of Nectan in other places like amongst the Picts. And he is the bearer of a divine sword, and one of his hands, which was cut off in the first battle of Moitura, was replaced with a silver arm by the healers of the Tuatha De Danann, hence his name. He is also the husband of Boan, the goddess of the river Boyne. My experiences with Nuada have been great. Nuada is a god of justice, of good judgment, and protection. He is happy to help when you need to go through a system of justice or to find good judgment, good leadership in your life. I have called upon Nuada for similar situations. Offerings are welcome, and worship and prayer, I think, would also be welcome within the understanding that Nuada is a god of justice and therefore really concerned with being a good person. Next, his wife Boan is a goddess of wisdom and goddess of the river Boyne in Ireland. She I associate with wisdom, compassion, and the Milky Way, since she released the river and is also a goddess of the sky and stars in that way. Her name means white cow, and thus she is associated with the bovine members of our society and the well of wisdom, which she released to bring wisdom into the world. I've called upon her for wisdom, compassion, help with magic, and guidance when in need, so things like divination. I found that Boan is a very kind and understanding deity who really likes to comfort people and help provide wisdom and develop wisdom. So if you're looking to work with her, maybe trying to develop that wisdom in yourself while you're doing the work is a good thing to connect with her. The Dagda is also called the good god, is the god of prosperity, fertility, and wealth. He is an earth father figure who's often depicted as a portly man with a harp or cauldron. He is a god of wealth and fertility, but also sovereignty, prosperity, goodness. The good things that we have in life, like food, drink, companionship, these all fall under the dog domain. He's one of the gods of the Tuatha De Danann who became one of the kings, and he carries the club of life and death, representing the cycle of death and rebirth, as well as carrying the cauldron of plenty that never runs dry, and the divine harp that makes the best of all music. The Dagda carried many skills and is called that because he was able to do everything the other gods were going to do to help at the Battle of Moytura. And he is considered sometimes a supreme deity, although this is untrue. He is just a very powerful, very helpful, very kind deity. In my work, I have called to him around the ideas of Beltane, about prosperity, fertility, creativity, but you can also call on him for protection, as he is a warrior god too, and concepts around goodness, bringing the good things into life, is where the Dagda is about, including enjoying life. And I found the Dagda to be a really enjoyable, really fun deity to work with. His wife is the Morrigan, who is a triple goddess of war, sovereignty, and fate. She is also a goddess of magic and death, and is associated with sort of the darker, creepier side of life. She's represented by ravens and crows, which are her animals, but she also has three component goddess parts, if you want to think about it that way. The first is Danu, the Earth Mother, who the Tuatha De Danann are named after, who is the fertility aspect, the mother in the maiden mother crone makeup of the Morrigan. Bav is the crone aspect, who is the goddess of death and war, and she is the predictor of the fates and outcomes of battle, as well as the lives of people. And Macha, who is the maiden part of the Morrigan. She is a goddess of horses and fertility, but also of war and sovereignty, the ability to make decisions for yourself and lead your best life. She was a magician of the Tuatha De Danann and helped do magic and fight the battles of the Katmai Torah with the other Tuatha De Danann. She's often called upon nowadays as a goddess of death-related workings, things related to war and conflict, fate, and especially magic, as she is a very powerful magical god. She can also be called on for sovereignty, trying to find and take control of your own life. But please beware that she is a very intense goddess, and sometimes asks for a lot and can be very dark and powerful in that way. Next, we have another important deity, Lu Lomvoda, which means Lu of the long hand. He's also called Lu Samildonach, Lu of god of all arts, and he is a master of all arts. So skill, victory, arts. He's also a thunder and lightning god. He's a god of the harvest, but he is the master of all the different things that you could do. He's the second king of the Tuatha De Danann and the father of the hero god Cuchulainn. He was also one of the younger generation of the Tuatha De Danann, but was promoted to the kingship because of how powerful and how skilled he is. He can be called upon for lots of different things, basically anything, because he is the master of all arts. But in my interactions with him, developing confidence, developing one's skills, and trying to achieve mastery are really a big part of the worship of Lu, in my opinion. So if you have a new craft that you're trying to take care of, or a new thing you're trying to get better at, or you're just deepening your skills, Lu can be very helpful, as well as called upon for protection, because he is the striker down of evil, like many other thunder gods. Ogma is the god of speech and knowledge, but also a champion of the Tuatha De Danann. So he is represented by speech and eloquence, the ability to speak, sing, and be good at poetry, but also of strength and defending your people. He has a divine sword as one of his symbols, but also sometimes is represented in continental sources as having chains from his tongue to the ears of humans, representing his power of speech. The Oa, the divination sets used by many modern Celtic pagans from an old Irish alphabet, is named after him in some etymologies. And you can call on him for a lot of things, trying to develop your speechcraft, inspiration, activism, raising your voice for something, but also study, the development of knowledge, the study of Ogham. Any of these things you can call on Ogma. And I have relatively limited experience with Ogma, but he seems to be a very knowledgeable and patient deity. And of course, one very popular deity is the triple goddess Brigid, or Breed, or Brige. She is the goddess of poetry, smithcraft, and healing, and often seen as a very compassionate fire goddess who has all of these deep crafting and magical skills, and is often represented by the Brigid's cross, which you can see a bit of on the left side of the slide here. She is three sisters who are the daughters of the Dagda, but was kind of syncretized into one being with Saint Brigid of Kildare, who was a Christian saint in Ireland. She is a fire goddess, again, that poetry, healing, smithing, all these things are represented either symbolically or literally with fire. She is often worshipped on Imbolc, which is her special holiday, and we'll talk more about Imbolc traditions in a different video. But you can call on Brigid for workings with fire, for inspiration, poetry, healing, creation, compassion, birth. Any of these things falls under Brigid's purview. She's a very powerful, very wide-reaching deity, and is very popular in many pagan circles. If you're looking to reach out to her, I would suggest, prayer and offerings, and try to make that connection. And she is often a very compassionate, helpful deity who is willing to work with just about anybody because of her connections both to sainthood and her being a really powerful goddess in her own right. Her half-brother, Angus MacOg, or Angus the Young, is the young god of love, lust, and beauty. He is often seen as being surrounded by birds, which are his kisses, and he is the son of the Dagda and Boann, the goddess of the river Boyne. He's the lord of the Bruna Boyne site, which is an archaeological site on the Boyne River in Ireland, and he is the foster father to some heroes, as well as being kind of a representative of those good things of beauty and youth and sexuality. These areas that fall under different deities like Venus or Aphrodite in the South and the Mediterranean. You can call on him for help with confidence, with love. He could also be really helpful in male coming of age and like male mysteries because of his masculine associations to like youth and sexuality. But he is, in my experience, a deity who really wants to help you be your best self and live your best life. Govnu is the god of smiths and brewers, overlapping with Brigid a little bit, but he is the smith and cook to the gods, who works on his divine forge and makes weapons. He is an uncle of Lu, and he cooks the feast of the gods as well as brews the magic ale which keeps them immortal. He's a deity of smithing and creating, and you can call on him for cooking, brewing, creation. I don't have much personal experience with Govnu, but he is a very powerful and important deity to the continued myths of the Tuatha. Diancecht, Ermij, and Miach are the healer surgeons of the Tuatha De Danann. They're also the origin of the sacred herbs. Diancecht is the uncle of Lu, while Ermij and Miach are his cousins, and they are the primary healers of the Tuatha De Danann. They're the ones who gave Nuada back his hand after it was cut off. You can call on them for healing, herbalism, recovery, surgery, medical issues. They are excellent, excellent healing deities. My experiences with Ermij have been really, really positive. She's very compassionate, very kind, and willing to help in healing matters. Next, we have Ancailach. She's the goddess of mountains, winter, and specifically the patroness of Scotland. She's a giant who is said to have crafted the land by making mountains and valleys, as well as the queen of winter. She carries a divine hammer, which she uses to create the valleys, and a basket full of rocks, which creates the mountains. She is also sometimes considered the ex-wife of Manannán mac Lir and creatrix of the whole land of Scotland, especially the Highlands. Sometimes she is the winter form of the goddess Brigid, or Brige, And then in some tales, she is the mother of Angus, who marries Brige in the spring. And these are Scottish stories instead of just the Irish two-a-day. In my experience of the Cailleach, she is a stern, older deity who is good working with winter magic and land workings, connections to Scotland, and the need to either create or move through problems in a disciplined, powerful way. And finally, for today, we have Manannán mac Lir, who is god of the sea and the Isle of Man, as well as the Otherworld. He is a sea god, yes, but also a trickster, teacher, and foster father even to other deities. He carries a divine sword that slays all opponents, has magic armor, a magic cloak of forgetfulness, a magical boat, sea horses, horses that ride upon the sea, and a sacred herb that can bring the dead back to life. He is a shapeshifter and has often walked amongst deities and human beings in that form, either to teach or to trick them, to humble the mighty and to raise up the weak. He's an ancient ally of the Tuatha Dé Danann, foster father to Lugh, and as I said, a teacher to many gods and heroes. He was my patron for a good while, and I found him to be a very kind, understanding, helpful, charismatic, funny deity. And you can really call upon him for just about anything because he's such an ancient and powerful deity that there's a lot of things that he can do. But transformation and learning are a big part of that. Ways that you can find to make offerings and pray to him for help in becoming a better version of yourself, in developing, growing, and learning. Now, I know that was a brief overview of a lot of different deities, but I hope that there's a nice introduction. If you want to keep looking and learning, then I suggest going to the myths and learning more about them, but also reaching out to these particular deities with offerings and prayers in whatever tradition works best for you, and seeing how they respond to you. You could also try to learn the Ogham so that you can communicate with them better. But that's entirely up to you. And I've found that the Tuatha Dé Danann are really good allies to humanity and willing to work with you in what ways are best for you. So I thank you and hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.